Welcome to Pick Up and Deliver, the podcast where I pick up my audio recorder as I step off the train and deliver an episode to you while I walk home. I'm Brendan Riley. Well, good afternoon, listeners. It's a lovely day here in suburban Chicago. I'm on my way home from class on a Tuesday. I get a short respite at home and then I'm off to my game club. Woe is me, huh? Go from class to home to game club. It's a nice life. Well, today I am going to be talking to you about a game that I really enjoy. And I was thinking about, I haven't done a duel in a while, so I thought today we would do a patented pick up and deliver deep dive duel. For those of you who haven't heard one of these before, a pick up and deliver duel is where I choose two games that are related in some way. Usually I have a reason to compare them, and I kind of do a deep dive of both of those games, talk about their positives and negatives, talk about what I like about them, what I dislike about them, and ultimately compare the two and come up with a winner. But the real winner is you, because you got to hear all the great analysis of the games. So I was thinking about a game that I have been playing quite a bit in the past couple years in online asynchronous play, and this is Trajan. I play Trajan over on combo-tastic, and almost every game of Trajan that I've played, I play with Kevin Barrett. Hello, Kevin. I believe Kevin's a listener, although he might not be. If not, I guess that hello went into the ether for no reason. But Kevin and I also have a long ongoing Agricola battle as well. So it's with Kevin that I've done my deep exploring of those games on combo-tastic. According to my records, I've played 22 games of Trajan, and like I said, I think nearly all of them have been with Kevin. If any of you listeners would like to play Trajan, I'd be happy to join you in an asynchronous game on combo-tastic. I will say, however, I have never played Trajan in person, so that would be one I'd enjoy. But I've never bought it either, because even though I enjoy it quite a bit, I just don't see it getting played at my house. It's too long and complex for its theme for my wife. And so it feels like it would just be a game that I would buy and sit on the table. This is honestly the same reason I haven't bought Concordia either. But I thought it would be fun to compare Trajan with another game that I feel like hits a lot of the same notes, and that is Praga Caput Regni. Now, I've definitely talked about Praga here on the podcast a couple times. I haven't talked about it in depth, I don't think, in a deep dive, and so it seems like it's time to do so. Now, unlike Trajan, I have played Praga in person, although I've never played Praga against another player in person. When I was trying to learn the game, I set up a 2-player game of it and played both players myself on the kitchen table to learn how Praga works. And then I've played it on yukata.de 13 times. So I certainly have passed whatever, usually I feel like 10 plays is enough to be able to do a deep dive discussion of the game. And so I feel like I can do that with Praga. So to start off, if you're unfamiliar with both of these games, here's a quick primer. Trajan is a game from designer Stefan Feld. It is a Euro game in the classic sense, and perhaps the epitome, the highest achieving peak of the kind of game that some people would derisively call a point salad. When I use the term point salad here, I'm using it, I think, as the original derisers did, which is to say a game where there are a lot of different things going on, and whenever you sample from any of the little things, you get points. Trajan works that way. There are several different places and kinds of activities that you can play. It's a collection of mini games, and each mini game, as you achieve things in it, will either get you points or bonuses in the other mini games. The primary mechanism for these mini games is a Mancala style wheel in which you start the game with a bunch of cubes, 2 cubes in each of 6 spaces, as I think. And then on your turn, you're going to pick up the cubes in one of the spaces and Mancala them around the wheel. A Mancala action is where you have a group of tokens and you drop 1 in each space as you go along. So in this case, in Trajan, there's a wheel with 6 possible actions on it. On your turn, you're going to pick up all of the tokens in one of the wheel spots and then drop 1 at a time as you go around the wheel until you get to the last spot where you dropped the token. and then you'll do the action for that spot. Pretty simple. It actually was more complicated to explain than the actual game itself. The game itself, that part of it's relatively simple. Like I said, there are 6 mini games, and each mini game has a different way that it adds to the board. In addition, around the wheel there are these spaces with these sort of tiles, and the tiles show a bonus or another type of achievement that you can get, and the tiles also show 2 colors. Now this is where the real depth of turn selection comes into play, and planning becomes really crucial in Trajan. Each tile has a couple tokens on it of different colors, and remember when I said there were tokens in the Mancala, those are in different colors as well. So when you stop your Mancala rotation, if both of the colors represented on the tile next to the Mancala space are also among the tokens that are in that space when you stop, then you not only get to do the action of the space, you also score the bonus that's depicted on that tile, and then that tile is discarded. So I'm not going to explain all the spaces. Suffice to say that there are cards you can play, there are cascading bonus tiles you can play, there's a map where you gain points by stationing units around it, there are cards that you gain points by collecting sets of the cards, there's a city building segment where you get points for the different kinds of city pieces that you build, and so on, and there's a Senate track. There's a bunch of stuff. So that's Trajan. The theme is you are the Emperor Trajan doing some, Roman empiring around. That's about as much as I understand the theme to be. Praga Caput Regni is a city building game in which you are one of several people working to build up the city of Prague in the 1300s. In this game, the action selection system is also a wheel, but instead of doing a Mancala to move around the wheel, you're going to pick one of several action tiles from this wheel of action tiles. I think there are 7 or 8 possible tiles you can choose. The way that the wheel is set up, there's an area on the wheel that is free, and then to the left of that area, in clockwise fashion, you get a bonus for taking the tiles in those spaces. To the right of that area, I think there's 2 free spots, and then there's a cost associated with it. The idea is after each turn, you're going to turn the wheel, and whichever tiles are available in those different spots, you get that bonus for taking them. The tiles are also on that wheel connected to another kind of bonus or action, and then the tiles themselves have 2 actions on them. So when you pick a tile, you're choosing one of 2 actions on that tile. Then you get the bonus that tile was next to, plus the outer ring bonus if it's positive or negative. So there's a whole bunch of bonuses involved when you take this tile. And then what the actions do, kind of like Trajan, there are a variety of different things you can do on your turn. You have a player board that represents, I don't know, something about the city. And one of the things you can do is take augments that make your actions better. So maybe sometimes when you build the road, you get an extra gold. So then once you take that tile, the next time you build the road, you get extra gold. So that's one of the things. You can also build these wall tiles around the outside of that player board. You can work on the road and eventually the bridge, which is a series of escalating bonuses. You can build buildings in the city, which will get you various kinds of bonuses and outcomes. And you can work on either building the Hunger Wall or the Cathedral, both of which again get you bonuses depending on how you use them. You also have a mine that mines ore and a mine that mines gold. So on your turn you might trigger one of those. You can either dig deeper in the mine to set yourself up for more riches or more gold, more ore later, or you can harvest from that mine and you get however much it's at. So every time that you do that action, you have to decide, do I want to make it better for next time or do I want to actually get it? And of course that making it better stays better. So the first time that you increase the output of your gold mine, you're going to get that benefit every single time you take an action afterward. And one of the big things is, unlike Trajan, which has a bunch of turns, but I'd be interested to count. I bet it's not a ton more turns than Praga. Praga, you're only going to have, I think it's 16 turns, which feels pretty fast the first time you play it, but once you've played a few times, you realize the sort of cascading bonuses really shake up the game and give you a lot of room to work. That's Praga Caput Regni from designer Vladimir Suchy. All right, now you've got the games that I'm going to be comparing. You've got the basic gist. So I'm going to give you 5 different rundowns or 5 different points of comparison and how I think each game stacks up. So to start with, I spent a lot of time there describing the different systems that the game uses. In Trajan, you've got the Mancala, you've got the map, the cards, the Senate, you've got the Mancala bonus spaces, and you've got this sort of city grid. These are really interesting interlocking systems, some of which will augment or alter the systems of the other parts. So for instance, the pieces that allow you to do the bonuses outside the Mancala, some of those bonuses will make other systems stronger. There's a whole thing where you can get these bonus tiles that make every time you take a particular action, that action gets stronger. There are just a variety of different ways to engage with what's going on in the game. By contrast, Praga, it feels like doesn't have as many systems so much as different sets of places you can make progress. So like you do have to think carefully about when you want to advance up the road, because if you advance up the road at the wrong time, you might not have the resources available in order to take advantage of the space. Because generally when you advance up the road, you get 2 bonuses. There's one that you can almost always get, and another one that you have to pay to use. So if you advance up the road when you don't have the resources to pay the second part, then you don't get that. While there are bonuses connected to some of the other results, they don't generally stay around. The one place where that's not true is the augmenting the actual actions themselves. There is as I said, you can augment the actions on your wheel, so when you take an action, you get a better version of it. There's even a tile that augments the thing that lets you augment the actions. I really like Praga. I think it's great, but I think when I compare these systems, Trajan, because each of the systems is a little different, Trajan has a whole bunch of different levers you can pull in ways that Praga, it feels like it's more like you have a bunch of different places that you can find synergy, but the game itself doesn't. You're not trying to handle different game systems so much as trying to coordinate when the bonuses are best to flow. Then you have the system of augmenting the actions and you have the system of your resource board. But other than those two, it's not quite the same. So I'm going to give it to Trajan for that first one. The second option, theme and look, hands down Praga. The board on Praga is very busy. It feels like a Richard Scarry picture or even a Where's Waldo type drawing. It's very intense. There's lots going on, but Trajan is dry as dirt. Holy cow, this game looks like a spreadsheet, and it needs to for the amount of stuff that's going on. But in the theme, I don't need the theme at all. It's completely disconnected. Whereas Praga, I feel like the theme kind of works there. You can see the city growing in front of you because of the way the components look. So Praga wins that one, hands down. The next one is cascading effects. I use that in describing what's happening in both games. In Trajan, there's a couple ways you manipulate the cascading effects. You get them by manipulating the bonuses outside of the Mancala. You get them by manipulating the action tile bonuses. And so working those together, then you'll get this cascade every few turns if you're really on top of it. That you'll get a cascade every few turns where you take an action and that lets you do, say, 2 or 3 versions of that action. You also have the really interesting cascade of managing your Mancala so that when you take one action, you're setting yourself up to take another action later, of keeping track of where the little markers are and how they're going to move and when. That part's really interesting and demands a lot of forethought. By contrast, Praga is all about bonuses on bonuses. You augment a thing, and when you do that, it lets you do another thing, and that thing maybe gives you a bonus. As you go along, you advance up certain tracks or move your markers like up the walls, and suddenly you're getting bonuses for moving those, and you get more bonuses for doing that. There are a variety of different resources that you can get that give you additional bonuses and let you cascade more things. So in terms of cascading effects, Praga Caput Regni, hands down, winner on that one. Although Trajan does have its share of delightful stuff. This is the hardest one, the turn-by-turn choices. Both games are exquisite in their turn-by-turn choices. But that said, Praga is a bit simpler because generally you're going to want to take one of the bottom 3 tiles that are available to use for free. Not always, sometimes you'll take one of the ones you have to pay for, but generally you want one of these 3 free ones because the resources are tight and you don't want to spend resources in that way. Now, admittedly, each of those three things has a double-sided action, and some of those actions are pretty minimal. You're gonna, like if you take the action that gives you ore, well, you just get ore, boom. Now, by contrast, Trajan, again, you're deciding which level of the Mancala to activate, but you almost always have several options, unless you've really hemmed yourself into a corner. And even when you do that, you hemmed yourself into a corner yourself. You did it because you weren't thinking ahead. Now the actions themselves aren't super complicated, but I really love the mix of choices involved in spreading those, pushing those things together. The mix of choices in deciding which Trajan action you're going to use really makes for a delightful setup. I think in terms of choices, the choices available in Trajan really knock it out of the park. Which brings me down to my final arbiter question. How hard is this game to teach and or learn? And unfortunately, I'm not sure I can answer that. I will say both Praga and Trajan took me a long time to learn because I didn't play them in person very much. And with Praga, I still feel like there's elements that I haven't fully digested. And frankly, that's true of Trajan too. There are these tiles in the middle of the board with Trajan. I'm not really sure what they do. The action cascade bonus things, I thought I knew what they did, but those don't always work the way I think they're gonna either. Now, admittedly, this is a self-imposed problem. I could fix this by going and reading the rule book, but I have not done so. So I think it's something to speak for. As I think about the two games though, I think Praga would be slightly easier to teach because there are slightly fewer systems. With Trajan, you would literally have to teach all 6 systems and how they interact. With Praga, it's more like 4. So I guess I'm going to give the edge to Praga a little bit, which means that in my final analysis, I give the edge to Praga Caput Regni over Trajan. In reality, this sort of subjective or objective analysis leads to the thing that's true for me anyway, which is that I like Praga better than Trajan. If nothing else, I think the theme is far more interesting as a thing you're doing. Although frankly, neither one hits the ball out of the park. Building a medieval city is about the most common theme there could be. So that said, both of these games are amazing and I love to play them. If you'd like to try them, I'm happy to play in person if you have a copy of Trajan, or I can supply my copy of Praga Caput Regni, or more likely, we can play asynchronously on one of the online platforms. We can meet up on Bois-Rajou to play Trajan, or on yukata.de to play Praga Caput Regni. I hope that you'll join me there, or just swing by Board Game Geek Guild 3269 and talk about which of these games you like better and why. Thanks for joining me on my walk today. I hope that your next walk is as pleasant as mine was. Bye-bye.
Brought to you by Rattlebox Games.